everybody. Welcome to Off-Grid 12-volt solar prepping. Okay, today I will be wiring up my JK BMS to my four 3.2 304 amp hour cells. Okay, I already have one side of the bus bars connected. I just left the nuts off of the side of the bus bars as I gotta put the balance wires on. Okay, this is a 200 amp JK BMS. This BMS either can use 4 cells or 8 cells. You can make a big 12 volt or an 8 cell 24 volt battery. Right now, I'm just using 4 cells to make a 12 volt battery. Okay, now, first things that's very important. The first wire you have is the black lead. Then you have to use the first 4 red wires that go onto the positive terminals of the cells, of each cell. Okay? You have to put the cells in opposite directions. Negative, positive, negative, positive. Okay? The bus bars, the first 2 bus bars go on the first 2 N cells. The second bus bar go on the next 2 N cells. So the bus bars will go on positive, negative, positive, negative. And then on the opposite side, the bus bar is going to go in the middle 2 holes, positive, negative. You're going to leave the first battery cell off and the last battery cell off. So the first battery cell and the 4th battery cell is not going to have a bus bar on it because you're going to put your cables on it, your negative cable and your positive cable. Okay? The JK BMS calls for 2 cables. You can't just use 1. You have to use 2 to make the flow of the current more stable. I don't know why. That's just how they want. They give you 2 terminals on each side of the BMS. You have 2 terminals on each side of the BMS because you have to put 2 cables on each side of the BMS. It's to make the current flow more smoothly. It has to be done. You can't put 1 bigger cable on the lug. You got to put 2 of the same size cables on the lugs. These are 6 AWG, American wire gauge. 6 gauge. Okay. And then you don't connect this side to the battery. This side goes to the negative cable that goes to your solar connection. Okay, to your solar board with your charge controller, your inverter, all your parts, just on your bus bars and everything. Your shunt, everything. This cable, this negative cable goes to your solar board. And the positive cable connects on to the positive of the battery. Okay, let's get started. Might sound a little confusing, but I'm going to make it understandable in a second. All right, now, to make things more easier, I'm going to put this down out the way so that you can see what I'm doing. And I don't cut these leads off of the BMS because I'm going to need these when I'm going to add the other 4 cells. So I'll just wrap these up to keep them nice and neat so that when I need the other 4 cells, I can unwrap them and connect them to the next 4 cells when I get them. Okay? Let me just push this BMS down. As you see, I have this in a milk carton. And the cells came with this styrofoam packed in on the sides of it. So it just happened to be a perfect fit. The styrofoam is pushed in on both sides of this, and I have the little sheets of, I don't know what this stuff is. It's some kind of Pexi plastic or whatever it is that goes in between the batteries to stop them from vibrating and help them from rubbing each other in case you put this setup in a van or a mobile object. Right now, this is in my house, so these little sheets are not really necessary, but I might put it in a van later on, so I put them in there just the same. All right, okay, let's start. Okay, first, on the negative terminal, you put the black wire. The black wire is negative. You put the negative wire on the negative terminal. That's first off. Okay? Second, you make sure that you have the first lead wire of the four. The wire that's right next to the black lead, you make sure that this is the next one. This one goes on the first positive battery. Now let me show you how I do it to make it simple. I take all four leads, okay? I take all four. Let me show you what I do to make it more simple so I don't get confused. I take all four leads, and when I know I have them in order, I take a magic marker and I just put lines on them so that I know which is which. Okay, this is the first one. It has black tape on it, so I know it's the first positive. So I put black tape on it. But anyway, I also placed a black line on it. Okay? For the second terminal, second lead, I have two lines. The third lead, I have three. All right, 3 lines for the third lead. And the fourth lead, I'm sorry, that's the third lead. This is the fourth lead. The fourth lead I have 4. Third lead I have 3. The second lead I have 2. And the lead with the black tape on it has 1. So this is how I know which leads go where. This is the fourth one, so this goes to the last battery. This is the first one, this goes to the first, second battery, third battery. Okay? And I'm going to have to test it with my multi-gauge tester so that I can make sure that the volts is proper. It should be 3 or 4 volts, then 6, then 9, then 12. All right, that's how it should be. My multimeter. I'm going to test with my multimeter to make sure it's right. So now let's put these leads on to the cells. Now let's untangle these wires up so they're nice and neat. This is the first wire. This is the first lead. Untangle it. Okay. First lead, the first black lead goes to the negative. The red lead goes to the positive. First positive. Right? Now the second lead. This is the second lead. The second lead goes to the second terminal, second battery. All right. Now, third lead, I believe it's this one. Yeah, so that's 3 lines on it. Third lead goes to the third battery cell. Fourth lead goes to the fourth battery cell. Okay, and this is the fourth lead. Okay. Now, the leads are all on the cells. Okay. The black negative wire is on the negative. The first red with the black tape on it is on the first positive. The lead with the 2 lines is on the second battery, the second cell. The lead with the 3 lines is on the third cell. The lead with the 4 lines is on the fourth cell. Now, there's one thing that's different with the JKBMS. It has 10 wires. It has 9 red wires and 1 black. The very last lead out of all these wires also goes on the fourth cell. The last lead, I just drew one long line on it. This is the last lead, also goes on to the fourth cell. Sometimes people have cut these when they're only making a 12-volt battery. They cut off the other leads. They cut off the 5 other leads. They don't believe they need them. Now they can cut off the 4 leads after they have their first 4 on the cells. They can cut the other 4 off, but they can't cut off the last one, the red one. The last red lead has to go on the 4th battery, or you're gonna have a problem. It's gonna be kind of hard to connect it back if you cut it off short. So whatever you do, don't cut off the last red lead. That must go on the 4th battery, or if you're using a 24 volt, it must go on the 8th battery. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's put the rest of the cables on the battery. Okay, now that this is down, let's put the washer and the nut. My mistake of being sloppy. Don't have on any jewelry when you're dealing with cells. This is big cells, big amp cells. These cells have 304 amp hours. If I was to touch both of these terminals with my watch on, it would electrify the metal on that watch, and it would burn my skin around my wrist, and it would give me a mild electrocution. It wouldn't kill me, not unless the current was going through my heart, but it's on my wrist, so it's not going through my heart directly, but it would burn the skin off my wrist. It's enough power to burn the skin off my wrist. So when you're dealing with a battery, when you're dealing with these cells, don't use 2 hands, use 1 hand. You should have on gloves, but just use 1 hand, not 2, because you can put 1 hand on the positive, 1 hand on the negative, and now you're making a complete circuit, and it will go through your heart. So just use 1 hand. That way you can't touch a negative and a positive together. Okay, I'm screwing down first positive nut. Now I'm putting on the 2 big 6 American wire gauge wires. This is a 6-gauge cable. I'm gonna put these on this terminal. Okay, they're on the terminal. Now, you just heard the BMS come alive. Now, let me put the nut on this. I have to get the washer. Where's the washer for that particular lead? Okay. I believe I put it on down. I believe I put it on top of the black lead that went on first. So I'll get another washer. You have to have all these different pieces of accessories when you're building your own battery. Okay, I put the washer on. Now, I almost forgot, I have one more part. This goes to my charger. I have a charger that I also have to use. Whenever this battery might happen to get low, I have to top balance it. First things first, I have to top balance this battery. Another thing, let me tell you, these cells were beautiful. These cells were all fat, no bulges. I'm sorry, these cells were not fat, no bulges, anything. Nice flat, square batteries, perfect batteries. At the end of the video, I'll tell you where I purchased these cells. Beautiful cells, great price. It only took 4 days for me to get them. I'm not sponsoring these cells. They don't know me from Adam. I just bought these cells. I took a chance with them, and I'm glad I did. They didn't come from China. They came from America. It only took 4 days to get them. And they are certified grade A cells. Beautiful cells. Okay. Let me just place. Let me just place this on there. All right. Now the nut. Okay. Let me just put these under the nut. So this type of battery connection has a space under it, and I don't want to mash it down to the battery to sprain it. These particular poles on these batteries can carry from 300 amps to 500 amps. If these poles were just the poles that come straight up out of the battery, they would only hold up to 250 amps. These can carry 300 to 500 amps poles on these batteries. Okay, let me tighten this up. Supposed to tighten it up to roughly 9 nanometers. I have the tool here, but I'll do it by hand. I pretty much have a good idea how tight it is. I'll probably off a little bit, but now I got it pretty good, pretty close. Okay. All right. Tightening down the leads on the battery terminals. Okay. Washer. Nut. It's not very complicated once you know what you're doing. The first time you will have a little bit of trepidation. You'll be a little scared because you know you could damage your cells or you could shock yourself. So you will have a little bit of fear in what you're doing. But once you do it once or twice, it's pretty easy. It's not really too complicated at all. But you must be cautious and you must be aware of what you're doing at all times because it can be dangerous. Okay. Now, no, this doesn't go like that. I'm sorry. This has to come back off. I have to place the fuse on here. I have a Blue Seas. I have a Blue Seas fuse on here. Okay. So one terminal fuse. Place this on here. Like see, let me show you this right now. You see how this is? This battery terminal is square and the pole is mounted in it. This is where the terminal, the pole would be mounted into the battery. But this is what they have mounted into the battery, and the pole is mounted onto this. So if you put pressure on this, you could mash this down into the battery. I don't want to do that. So for the terminals, then I'm putting a lot of pressure on because they have a lot of connections on it. I put this under it. It's just a nickel and a big washer. I slide it under there to prevent that from bending down. Okay? Now here's the fuse going on. All right. Now, lead number 4. And the 9th wire to the BMS. All right. See when I put that 9th wire down, how it started beeping? That 9th wire is very important. If I would have cut that off, we'd have a world of trouble. Okay. Now, place that on there. Place the nut. Oh boy, it's falling off. Place the nut. Screw the nut down. All right. Okay. Now, take those out. Now I'll put the fuse in. Since I have a 200 amp BMS, I have a 200 amp fuse. All right. Fuse in place. Place the washer. First, place the positive battery cable. This is a big 4-aught cable. This is big baby here. I don't want to lose no amperage, so I have a very big cable. You don't never want to go smaller, but you can always go larger. Larger is safer. It's better safe than sorry. Don't go smaller to save money. Go larger, because it could be a very dangerous situation if you go smaller and these wires, let your wires get hot, and insulation starts to melt and smoke, and it could catch fire. So you always use nice big beefy cables to be certain that you're not going to run into any problems. If you happen to be using an induction top stove, or you're using a refrigerator or any high amp appliance, you can cause a problem. So make sure that your cables can handle that amount of current. Always be safe. Safety first. Don't put you or your loved ones at risk. Okay, let's tighten this up. Okay, that's it. We're all secure. Let's see if I can put this top on. I don't know. This is kind of heavy. The nut is kind of full. Pop it on there. All right, it's on. I don't know if it's going to stay, but it's on. Okay, this is on. Everything is good. Everything is working great. Now let's test it with the multimeter. Right. Okay, multimeter is on. The light on so you can see it. Okay. Red for the positive, black for the negative. Let's test it out. Okay. 3.32. 6.63. 9.95. 13.27. Everything is working properly. Okay, everything is working properly. All right. Now you have your setup. Everything is hooked up. The JKBMS is set up. Have it down inside this little box here. Okay, I have the two cables. The two cables is connected onto the big 4-aught negative cable. The negative is connected to the big 4-aught negative. Okay, let me take my camera down so that you can see what's going on. Alrighty. All right. There's the battery there, all connected up. Here's my solar system. Okay, let me turn it on for you so you can see. Okay, 13.3 volts. My Lifetime solar charge controller, 13.3 volts. Let me turn on my NovaPower inverter. NovaPower 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. AC out, 112 volts. This is only a 110, 60 hertz. Temperature is 29C. DC in, 13.4 volts. Okay. I have to readjust the monitor for the BMS. It's not adjusted properly. This is my shunt monitor. It's at 80. It's correct because this battery was connected. I just wanted to make a video for you guys to show you how to connect the battery. When I disconnected it, this is what it was at. It was at 80 and 244 amp hours. Okay. This BMS also has not 1/2 of an amp of a balance. This doesn't have 1 amp balance. This particular BMS has 2 amps of balance. So it has 2 amps of balance and it's set at 5/100ths of an amp. So when it gets off balance, when it gets, what do they call that now? They call that the, not the divide. Well, when the cells get out of line by more than 1/500ths of an amp, the BMS cuts on. Okay. Now, the balance cuts on. As you see, the balance is on. Balance is on. Charge is on. Discharge is on. Let me show you the cells. This is a touch screen, so I can just touch it. Okay. Now you see the balance. The blue is the highest cell. Now the blue is the red. The red is the lowest cell. So you see it's 270. Cell number 2 is 270. Cell number 3 is 270. Cell number 4 is 270. 3 volts, 270. 3 volts, 0.270. All right. Even though it says that, it's still off by 5/100ths of an amp. That's why they're changing. Now the first cell is blue. Now the second cell is red. That's the lowest cell. Now they're all even. They're all green. They're even. And the first one is blue. Now the second cell is low again. So the balancer is working. Okay. But I have to adjust that so that it will be proper. In order for me to adjust that, I have to do it on my phone. I'm making this video with my phone, so I can't do it now. But it has the whole breakdown, and I have to adjust it, and then it'll have the same reading as my shunt monitor. It'll have 80%. It'll have 80%, but it doesn't show you the amp hours. It'll just have 80%. Okay? And that's the remote on and off switch for the NovaPower inverter. All right. So this is the whole setup. This is my solar panels out on the terrace. Here's my photovoltaic wires coming in to my breaker. The breaker is off. The breaker goes up into the solar charge controller to the cells, then the battery. Those cables, those go down to the bus bar. The bus bars go down to my kill switch, and then down to the fuse to the battery. The negative comes up to the 500 amp shunt, comes around to the bus bar, then the smaller cable goes in, to the 200 to 2000 watt inverter. Let me pull it back a little bit so you can see better. Okay, that's the wiring for my system. I have a little light bulb there. Okay, so everything is working. And now that's the end of this video. If you learned anything, if you found it interesting, if you would like to see my next video that will be coming out in a couple of days, you can subscribe to Off Grid 12-volt solar prepping, and you will be able to get my next video. If you also liked it, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thanks a lot, preppers. Keep prepping your energy and keep prepping your food supply, because you never know what's going to come the days ahead. So be energy independent, be food independent, and keep your habitat independent, and keep your security. Don't depend on nobody to keep you secure. All right, preppers, that's it for now. Be safe, and until next time, God bless.